In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Archimedes web app, the CMS and the point of sale system. If you see a double, that's because I'm running this in a virtual machine, so I can show you how to install the application on a fresh install of Windows. So open your web browser, for example, Microsoft Edge, then navigate to www.archimedescms.com. Then over here, you can find the download section. Click on that. You can find here the installation instructions, but I'll guide you through these step by step in this video. Download the version from GitHub, then go to code and download the zip file. So when you click on this button, it will give you a pull down menu, and then over here is download zip. Then it starts downloading the software. Archimedes is a web application. In other words, it runs on a web server. So you need a web server and a database in order to be able to use the software. By the way, everything is also here in the installation instructions, and it says also here install web server and the database first. In the installation instructions, there is a handy package called XAMPP or WAMP, and this is a all-in-one package with the web server and the database already included, and you can easily install this on Windows. So I click on XAMPP over here, and then it will take me to the website of XAMPP. And then over here is a button that says XAMPP for Windows. Let's click on that. And now it should, in this case, it doesn't run automatically the download. So let's click over here. And then on the next page, there is a download button over here. Download the latest version. And now after a while, the download starts downloading, and we wait until the download is finished. Okay, when I switch back to the installation instructions, we have to install the web server and database first before we can install the software itself. Now the download has finished. Let's go and look up the files that we just downloaded. The reason why this is a little bit choppy is because this is a virtual machine. This PC, and then over here is the downloads section. Oh, that's documents, downloads. And then over here I have two files. Let's start first with XAMPP, otherwise it won't work. Now it asks you for permission to install the software, so let's click on yes. Important because it's a user activated user account control. What this actually says is don't install it in the program files directory, because this is protected and you need be able to write files like config files and log files to the directory itself, and that doesn't allow Windows for security reasons, but we need that, so we install it elsewhere. In the XAMPP installation, we click on next. Now it asks what you want to install. It always wants to install Apache. You can't even unselect that. In this case, I don't need anything except Apache and MySQL. So I uncheck this. I don't need Perl as well. I need PHP. PHP admin, you don't need that, but it is handy if you need to be able to reach a database for maintenance, for example. Webalizer, you don't need that. I would advise you to install fake sendmail, because this allows you to reroute the emails that the software sends you via sendmail or fake sendmail to your own email address. So this emulates a email server, so you are able to receive emails from the software. Now click on next. Now it asks you where you want to install the software. See, XAMPP directory is just fine. Don't choose the program files directory. That was what the message was about earlier. So let's click on next. Language English, that's just fine. And now it's ready to install. Next, and now it starts to unpackage the files and install the software we need. It might take a few minutes before this process is completed, so be patient. Okay, after the installation is done, you get this screen and it says that it has been finished starting XAMPP on your computer. Do you want to start the control panel now? Yes, we want to, so check this and then click on finish. In order to start Apache and in order to start MySQL, you need to click on start over here and you need to click on start over here in this panel. Now it asks you for your permission again. This is a security measure. Yes, I want to allow Apache to start and clients, mainly web browsers, to connect to this server. Allow. And it does the same thing for MySQL. And it says, and so I click now allow. Be aware that you need to start Apache and MySQL every time that you boot your computer. These services need to be running in order to able to use the software. You can find the software normally in the start menu of Windows when you click on all, and there needs to be an item that says XAMPP over here, and then you can find the XAMPP control panel over here, and then it starts the panel that we just had. Now I have two because I started two. So you need to do this action every single time that your computer starts. I quit one screen, and now we can install the software itself. We can check if the web server is running by typing in your browser localhost. And now there is the dashboard of XAMPP. Now let's go and install the software itself. Therefore, go to the downloads directory. Again, go to Finder over here in the bottom of the screen, and then over here go to downloads. Then over here you have CMS5 main. Double click on that. This is the zip file that we just downloaded. CMS5 main, there is a directory in that zip file that is called also CMS5 main. So double click on that. And now we have a couple of directories over here. Let's open a new tab because we're going to navigate to the directory that the installation of XAMPP created. That is on your C drive. And then over here you can find the directory XAMPP that we just created. And over here we have a couple of directories. Now, what is important to know is that when you go into the htdocs directory, this is the public directory, the directory that is accessible via the browser. So you can see over here, it says localhost/dashboard. Localhost is this directory, and a directory is called dashboard, and that's the same directory that is over here. So we now have identified the public directory of XAMPP. For security reasons, we need to copy a couple of directories in the non-public part and a couple of directories in the public part. Therefore, go back to the zip file. Then what we're going to do is copy all the directories except the public directory. So what we can do is hold Control and then select all the directories. The .vs code is just for the development, don't worry about that. Log files, we don't select public. I'm still holding the Control key on my keyboard. I click Resources, Sources, Vendor, change log country. That doesn't matter that much, but just to be complete, just select them all. So I have selected all except .vs code and public. Now what we're going to do is copy this, so we can type Ctrl+C on the keyboard, and now in the htdocs directory go one directory up, and now we're going to paste Ctrl+V all the files from the zip file except the public directory. Okay, now that's done. Now go to the public directory, and we're going to double click on that directory. And now what we're going to do is click on your, or type on your keyboard Ctrl A, then again Ctrl C, and now we're going to the XAMPP directory and we go to htdocs because that's the public directory. And now we're going to do Ctrl V. And it says that there is a index.php, and that is correct. We're going to override the index.php. I'm going to replace that file. Okay, so far, so good. So now what we're going to do is localhost, and instead of dashboard, we're going to type install and hit enter. And now it will start the installation process of the software itself. Let's select install. It is automatically selected. Now click on next. Now it wants you to agree with the license agreement. And yes, I agree. So let's click on that and then click on next. And now it runs us through a couple of prerequisites checks. Okay, it does a couple of checks. Mod rewrite, yes, that's successful, and it tests if that is working correctly. Now it gives us a warning about a couple of things. It tests for PHP modules and it doesn't find zip, intl, and gd. Zip is used for extracting modules. Intl is used for a third-party software for international languages, and JD is used to resize images. It is recommended to install them all. Without JD, you can't upload images. There are some instructions over here, what you can do it on Ubuntu and on Windows XAMPP. And now go to this directory and open it in a text editor. And now we need to remove these commented modules. There we have to say that those are active modules. So let's go to Finder again, or Explorer. I constantly say Finder, but it is called Explorer on Windows and it's Finder on Mac. Now let's go in the htdocs directory to XAMPP and make sure that we go into the PHP directory. PHP, where are you? Over here. The php.ini file. So let's look for that php.ini file. That is this file. So let's double click on that. Now it will hopefully open. Yes, indeed, it will open Notepad. Yeah, got it. And now we have to remove a couple of things. Let's search for zip. Ctrl F on your keyboard. And then let's type zip. And then over here, the zip extension is disabled. So let's remove the semicolons before zip. Let's search again for int L. Enter. Nope, that's not what we want. Extension int L. Let's remove that, and JD, and also here extension JD. Okay, now let's save this file. Click on File over here and then click on Save. Okay, now these functions are enabled, or these extensions are enabled, but it isn't applied to the web server yet. Therefore, we need to restart the web server. We can close this file over here, and then we can go back to the panel of XAMPP. And then let's stop the web server and start the web server again. And now let's refresh the web page just to see if now these modules are installed. Let's refresh the web server, and yes, they are. So now let's click on next. It has created a config file for the local host and for the default website. So now let's click on next. Now you need to enter the database credentials. If you're running this on a web server, you have a web hosting account, then you need to enter the information that your web hoster gave you. In this case, we're running XAMPP, so everything is local. The host name or IP address is localhost. The username is root for the default user in MySQL. It is recommended that you change this password later. For now, in this installation process, I'm not going to do that. For now, I'm going to use the user root without a password, because that's default. I'm going to create a default database schema. Database schema, you can have multiple databases within a database. That is called a database schema. CMS5 is just fine. You can choose your own name. It doesn't matter that much. The default port is 3306. That's just fine. The table prefix, just leave it alone. So now, when we click next, it starts to connect to the server and see if the credentials are right or wrong. If they are wrong, you need to click on previous and change these settings. And every time you hit next, it starts to test the connection. In this case, these credentials are fine. And for now, I'm going to continue. So click on next. This is the test, and the test has succeeded. So I click on next again. And now we get a scary looking screen. Regretfully, we have to abide by a lot of privacy rules. And for your users to be safe in your system, some data needs to be encrypted. The downside of data being encrypted is you can't search for it and you can't sort on that data. This is super annoying, but because this hinders the operation of the software, we gave you some lenience and choose your own threat risk. If you are running your software on a local computer, on your local network, then security is an issue, but not as big as an issue as if you were using it on a web server where everybody on the whole world can access your website. So what I would advise you to do is to have a very strict security policy when it comes to a public internet website and a much more lenient for a local operation. The most safe is using it on a local network. The first question, the data retention. The system can automatically anonymize data, which is required by the GDPR. But how long do you want this period to be? For example, if you need to retain data for your tax agency, for example, that is in the Netherlands 7 years, then you need to input here 7 years in days. If you want this to be 10 years, then you can leave this number here. You can also choose 0, but then you won't comply with the law. When it anonymizes data, it overrides all the data when it comes to your last name, address, postal code, and phone number and email address. You can't reverse this anonymizing of the data once it is done. So choose this carefully. For now, for this installation, I choose 10 years. To abide by the GDPR, you need to encrypt fields, but then you can't find your data back. So what I would suggest you to do is in a website environment, I would choose all these boxes as checked, because if a data breach happens when someone gets inside the system and does a hack on your system, all these data is encrypted. The downside thus is you can't search for it and you can't sort on it. When you're using it in a local environment, so a local network, then it is useful to be able to search for things. So when you're running a web shop, I would suggest to check all these boxes and leave this unchecked. But when you're running it in a local environment and you want to be able to search for your customers, then I would suggest uncheck all of these boxes over here and check all these boxes over here. Because what this will do, it creates a search field that you are able to search for. But this data is not encrypted. In other words, if you were to have a breach on your local network, the data is lost. In other words, people can see all the private data of your customers. Okay, let's click on save. And now the installation process starts. So all the data is inserted in the database, all the modules are installed, and everything is getting ready for you to use the system. Just be patient and wait a couple of minutes, seconds to complete this process. Okay, we're already done. So let's click on next. Now choose a username that you want to be able to log into the system. In my case, I choose just a standard username of root. Please choose your own for security reasons. Also, my password is really easy. Just to be sure that you supply the right password, I'm going to retype this password, and then over here you can enter your email address. You don't need to, but if you want to able to receive status messages for the software, it is useful to enter your email address here. We don't use that for marketing or anything like that. This email address is just saved in the config file of the system, and it is saved in the database just like any other user that you create. Again, you don't need to supply it. Let's click on create, and now the user is created and it has stored the values in the config file, and then now we get to the installation report. This is one of the most important screens that you will get, because this is an overview of everything that we just have inputted. Make sure that you copy this to a Word document or print it, or print it and frame it above your bed, because this information is super important. If you don't have this information, you can't enter the software or use the software. Okay, let's say click on login, and now we get a login screen. If you're getting tired of the bright white, then you can click on dark mode, and now it switches to dark mode. We can use the username that we just chose, in this case root, and I click on login. And now we're here. When you also want to be able to receive emails that the software sends you, then follow along with these steps. This, of course, only works when you installed the fake SendMail program in the installer of XAMPP. Let's go back to Explorer. And then in this directory, this PC, Windows XAMPP PHP, there we have this php.ini file. Let's open that by double clicking, and then let's look for the line sendmail_path. So Control F, and then sendmail_path, enter, and there it is. And then uncomment this line, send email path, quote, /quote, capital C, colon, and then XAMPP, double P, /sendmail/sendmail.exe /quote space -t quote. Make sure that these quotes and these slashes are in here. Without this, this does not work. Then hit save. Now there should be a sendmail.ini file in the sendmail directory. Let's close this and let's go to the sendmail directory. Not PHP, but sendmail, where are you? Sendmail, over here. And let's go to sendmail.ini, where are you? Here, over here. Double click on that. Now we need to adjust a couple of settings. SMTP server. You need to enter your own SMTP server in here that probably starts with smtp.myhoster.com, for example. Then make sure that the port is correct. SMTP port is, generally speaking, it could be that it is sent via SSL, so that is 465. Then SMTP_SSL, that is over here, but you can find that in the documentation that your email provider sent you. Then you have to supply probably a username, and that is auth_username. Oh, here, yeah, auth username, and then supply your username, and over here supply your password. When you're done with that, click on Save, and then restart the web server. And again, you can do that in the XAMPP control panel. Then click on Stop, and then click on Start again. And now when there are status messages, resetting a password, for example, that will send an email to you. And now this is supposed to work. We can close this file if we want to. Just to make sure, now you and only you can log into the system. This is because of a security measure, and we can loosen this restriction a bit by going into Settings, and then over here Global Settings, and over here is a section all about security. Over here it says login only allowed from whitelisted IP addresses. If you uncheck this and hit Save, that you can find over here, then anyone can log in. You can also enable or disable the stealth mode. When in stealth mode, it plays dumb and it says, oh, there's no website here, there's no website here. If you want to access the software from another computer, you need to type in the IP address and then /admin, and then this whole shebang over here, and you can find the IP address in the settings. So right click on the Windows menu icon thingy, and then Settings, and then type in network and Ethernet settings over here, and over here it says IP4 address, and that is the IP address that you have to type in from another computer, so 10.0.2.15. And when you type that in, 10.0.1.15, and then / and then admin, then you will be able to access this computer. If you don't want to allow just anyone, you can go to security, and then over here it says login IP blacklist whitelist. Click on that, and now you can click on new, and now we can add a new IP address over here of the computer that you want to allow to connect to this computer. Oh, and make sure, by the way, that you have checked that it is whitelisted, and then hit Save.